Welcome everybody to the 31st episode of Comic DNA, on which we will be discussing Peepo Choo Volume 3, written and drawn by Filipe Smith, and first published by Kodansha in 2009. I am Aaron Walther, and with me today are my fellow Peepo Choo reading friends, Mr. John Parrish.
Hello, hello.
And Mr. Luke Thompson-Morris, returning to the podcast.
Thanks for having me again.
Yes, so Luke, it's been a while since you and I have talked about comics.
Yeah, well, professionally.
Professionally, yes, of course. But so we did we did book 2 last month, and you weren't able to be on that episode due to a scheduling snafu.
Correct.
So before we start talking about book 3, why don't you just go ahead and give me some of your first impressions about book 2?
Well, my first impressions of book 2, the Fate stuff was a little odd. You know, as you know, expected. It's not necessarily a believable character, so of course it's going to be a little out of the ordinary. But I liked a lot of the plot devices that they set up to go into book 3, which they, you know, most of them got answered, and yeah, it was a lot. It was a really quick read, like even quicker than the other 2 books. I feel like before I even knew what was happening, I was already kind of done with the book. It was just a lot of weird onomatopoeia and just a bunch of action scenes back to back, and it was cool. It was a pretty cool book. Until book 3, I liked it more than the first book, but they keep just kind of progressively getting better. So that's good. I wish I would have been there for it so I could give a little more in depth. But I haven't read it since you guys did it.
Right,
so.
right. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah,
I do agree. I think book 2 is the fastest read out of all of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it's just sort of like chugging along with the plot. Like it feels the book 2 doesn't take as many detours into just sort of like little speeches about
being out of place
and whatnot, like book 1 does. It's still there in book 2,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still there in book 3 too.
Yeah, it just also didn't have as much to set up as the first book.
Yeah, exactly.
The first book was really exposition heavy because they kind of had to get you used to everything.
And all the characters, yeah.
Yeah, so book 2, it already kind of assumes you know. So
let's start talking about book 3. I'm just going to run through a brief plot synopsis of book 3.
Thank you, because I did not write one down.
That's okay. I didn't write one down either. I'm just going to wing it.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, book 2, or book 3, I should say. Book 3 just picks up directly where book 2 leaves off, and you have Fate has he's killing off all these different Yakuza members. And Milton is disheartened because nobody in Japan likes being an otaku, and nobody likes Peepo Choo, and so on and so forth. So basically, book 3 follows Milton as he continues to hang out with Reiko and Mike. And Jodi, the big plot twist is that Jodi runs into Morimoto Rockstar, and they start to hang out and sort of become friends. And then all the plot lines sort of converge when Gil shows up to kill Morimoto Rockstar as he's paid to, and he finds Jodi there. And he is forced to
reevaluate.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that happens, but basically what happens is now the plan has changed where Gil has to kill everybody and rescue Jodi, and that's basically the plan. Or that's basically the plot without going into any details. And then you can say that it has a happy ending. You know?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff that happens in this book, but as like a conclusion to the whole story, first impressions. John, what do you think of book 3? How do you think it handles all the themes in the story that had been building up to this point?
I mean, I think it does it fairly well, and in terms of like the arc for Milton and like him having to discover things, it kind of helps, it comes full circle for him, and even helps with Reiko, and I don't know, I feel like it does well. I like, like there is the fact that at the very, very end it's kind of like a cliffhanger type thing.
Yeah.
Like setting up for another book that never came.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I said, like I think it did a good job of doing what it set out to do. Like, Filipe Smith did what he set out to do and kind of got his point across fairly well, you know.
Yeah, I agree. It that ending page, like, it clearly leaves it open for more stuff to happen.
Mhm.
But I still feel like you said, like, it's a solid thematic ending. Like, everything that was set up in the first book is resolved in the third book.
Mhm.
Other than like this cliffhanger, you know, you could, if you just cut out that page, like, it would be like still a completely satisfying self-contained story.
Mhm.
And it's, I don't even say it's not even necessarily fair to call it a cliffhanger, because it's not really a cliffhanger. It's just sort of like
It's like a post-credits.
a post-credits
Yeah.
scene. Yeah, it's like an epilogue.
It's the secret ending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's exactly. It's like a secret ending that sets it up if Filipe was to do more, but it's not necessary for the full story. Like, the full story has been told.
I almost think it's not even the full page, just Morimoto's panel. Like,
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like Reiko going to America to visit Milton, whatever. That's cute, whatever. But yeah, the Morimoto going to Japan or going to America to find to find Jodi. That was the part that felt like the cliffhanger for me.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that you refer to it as a post-credit scene, because that's actually, like, exactly what it is.
Yeah, in the book.
In the book, because it does the last page. As Luke just said, the book ends with Gil and Jodi and Milton go back home to America, and it ends with Milton's all excited because Reiko is going to come see him, and she's in the airport waiting to board the plane. And it says the end, ? And then there's a little special thanks on the next page, and it lists, like, Filipe lists all these people that he thanks. And then after that is these extra panels where we see that Morimoto Rockstar is also at the airport, also waiting to board the same plane and going to the same place.
Yep.
So it is actually literally like a post-credits scene.
Yep.
But yeah, I do think that it resolves everything that was set up in a fun way.
Mhm.
I think all of the Peepo Choo books, like, there's lots of, like, crazy action scenes or fun little comedy scenes. There's lots of, like there's really good visuals in this book, and that's one of the things that I like so much about it. So, we talked a lot about the cool different scenes and the visuals in the first book and in the second book. So what would you say is, like, your favorite visual or just, like, cool, like, event or panel or situation in the third book?
Mine is probably that Gil got discovered. That's one of mine, that, like, Morimoto Rockstar tried to get his appearance out on TV, so he had to keep, like, changing it up. I don't know, that was just a tiny little thing that I liked, having him keep having to change costumes as he goes out his fate.
Well, he was always changing costumes as
Was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I just didn't notice it, really.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much blood. Couldn't
Right.
see anything else.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. I think my favorite image, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's, like, just one image that I'm like, oh man, this is, like, the best. But, like, I'll tell you the page I like, the panels I really like. I like the scene where Milton meets the old man.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's a really good sequence, because that comes at such a great part in the book too, because Milton is all disappointed that Japan is a lot like America,
Mm-hmm.
And he still doesn't feel like he fits in.
He wants to be Japanese, like he wants to wear Japanese clothes, and and Riko's like, no, this is where everybody shops, and she takes him to like a Brooklyn themed clothing store, Brooklyn style, and dresses him up like it's exactly like his costume that he wore in the first book that he hated except instead of all white socks and Chicago stuff, it's Brooklyn. You know, and but yeah, so then he meets the little old Japanese man and trades clothes with him. Yeah. That's good. I think one of my favorite sequences and panels absolutely has to be when Mike meets Gil.
Oh yeah.
And she like
all over him.
Yeah, she freaks out about how big he is, and she says that he's like my neighbor Totoro.
Yes.
And then then just that panel of like giant huge Gil with Mike just climbing all over him is great. And her just riding on his shoulder.
Yeah, that was great. I also loved when Morimoto Rockstar realizes that Jodi is like an American gangster, and he starts trying to do like gang signs at him and stuff. And I also love that Filipe blurred that out.
I was gonna say that was a great joke.
That was a neat little touch. There was even a little footnote that said, "Don't recreate gang signs in public."
Yeah, no, that was a great bit about how all the gang signs that Morimoto Rockstar was doing were censored.
They were also mixes of different gangs.
Yeah.
And Jodi even says, like, is he doing 2 different gangs? Like, what's going on with this guy?
Well, that's the good segment of this book. A large segment of this book is spent on Jodi when he's disappointed in Japan. He hates Japan. Milton's getting all this action from all these nerd girls that he meets. I love when Jodi tries to hit on Mike, like, as a last resort.
Yes.
And he
No,
says,
thank you.
yeah, exactly. And she just denies him, just politely says, no, thank you. But that panel of him telling her that she's kawaii, it's pretty great.
You are so cute.
You are so cute, yeah.
No, thank you.
But, yeah, so the majority of the book is spent with Jodi. Jodi runs into Morimoto Rockstar, and it's a really good, like, the whole sequence is really good because they can't understand each other, so the only way they have to communicate is like through like their cultural similarities, because Morimoto Rockstar is obsessed with American gangs, and Jodi, is like a real guy from Southside Chicago, and it's a mirror of Milton's obsession with otakus and a complete misunderstanding of the culture. But I love how like they can't understand each other when they talk, so they keep thinking that the other person is saying something else. And like Jodi has no idea who Morimoto Rockstar is. He thinks he's some kind of celebrity. He has no concept. He doesn't understand that he's like the head of the Yakuza.
Yeah.
Like the part where they're doing all the gang signs is really good. But there's a part in the limo when they're watching Brickside.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Morimoto, it's like the panels are really great because Morimoto is talking about how great it is, and Jodi's talking about how terrible it is, and they both think that the other one like agrees with them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Morimoto just keeps saying how cool and real it is, and Jodi's laughing because it's like a big joke, and there's just like it's a complete communication breakdown. And it's kind of, I don't know, I think that's an interesting mirror because that's the polar opposite of the Peepo Choo situation with Milton, because the whole point of Peepo Choo is that it facilitates communication, and that Milton is able to use his obsession with Peepo Choo to communicate with Miki. Yeah. But like Morimoto can't really communicate with Jodi.
No.
With Brickside.
Especially because when he's trying to quote Brickside, he's doing it in like broken English.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he does it all wrong, like Brick said.
No. He spelled it wrong.
He spelled it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like in Japanese it would be Brickside, because SAI is Sai, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's the difference in the pronunciation of the letters.
Which is hilarious because like that actually is a real thing. Like you do see things where it's like the people wrote like words on shirts, but they sounded out phonetically, but they did it like how they believe it would be in Japan. So like it's completely off. So you like are like, wait, what is that? And I mean, and that's really what it comes down to when you see people like posting signs and posting things of like language being butchered. It really just comes down to like the difference in like the alphabets and like katakana and things. Like it doesn't translate well. So, like, but I like that because, like, I've had kids wearing shirts, and I was like, what is this supposed to mean? What is this supposed to really say?
Yeah.
But, yeah. But I love that. I love the whole Brickside segment.
Yeah, that whole bit is great. I like all of Morimoto's tattoos.
Yeah.
How he just has like a mix of, like, he's got an Aryan Nation tattoo and a Black Power tattoo and Latino Kings tattoo. Just any type of American gang, even if they're completely conflicting with each other, he's got it.
Yeah.
Now they're all cooler than Jodi's tattoo too.
Yeah.
I loved that follow-up.
Yeah, that was
like,
a good
I really didn't think Jodi was going to have any tattoos. But
right.
He's got a little tramp stamp.
My Little Pony tramp stamp. Of course, you know, this was in 2009. You know, now in 2015, I bet it wouldn't be quite as hard to find some dudes with a little My Little Pony tramp stamp.
It's really upsetting how true that is.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Jodi.
So, I think Jodi's story is good. Do you think he actually loses his virginity?
No.
I don't think he does either, because it looks like it's like he's getting ready to have sex. Like, the women are crawling all, like...
Because, of course, they wouldn't happen. You know, something would happen.
Exactly. And then right when it's going to happen, that's when Gil, a.k.a. Fate, shows up. And that panel of Jodi, like, freaking out, like, crying when he sees Gil, that's pretty good.
I never, like, whenever I saw Fate bust in the room, I guess I didn't really, like, piece it together that, like, that would be Morimoto's red flag, that, you know, Jodi was a spy, essentially. Because it kind of, like, shocked me. I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, no, that would make sense. Of course he would think that Jodi's a spy.
Well, yeah, because what happens is Fate jumps in and he's going to kill him. And this is when...
And then he backs off.
Morimoto knows who Fate is. Like, he's been recording him and, like, watching him because he's, you know, he thinks he's, like, this cool, larger-than-life, you know, crazy killer dude. Yeah, he's totally brutal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that scene, he breaks into the room and then stops, which he's never done that before. Like, he's never not just, like, killed somebody. And he sees Jodi and he leaves. And so, yeah, that's a big... Yeah,
red flag.
That's a big red flag, yeah. But yeah, so moving away from Jodi's story, we'll talk about the conclusion of the book in a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Milton and Reiko's story. We kind of mentioned that like earlier. We were talking about the ending with Reiko going to America to visit Milton. That's how it ends. So what did you think about Milton basically hooking up with Reiko instead of Mike?
Well, I mean, it's open to interpretation. Like, I mean, like, Miki is gone, like, essentially, like, after, like, what, like, a certain point, it's like she's not even really in the picture.
Yes.
But, I mean, I kind of think that was, like, the point for the story. It's like her meeting Milton helps Reiko basically gradually come to terms and, like, be more accepting and all those things. I don't know, like, it could be open to interpretation that they're, like, together. Like that,
right? There is no implication that it's like strict, like it's a romantic relationship, but like they become good friends.
Yeah, and I mean, on some level, I feel like Miki kind of facilitated it in a way. Sure. Yeah, so it's like that was kind of her point. Like it was like Milton didn't understand certain things, and he was just like really bummed, and then like Reiko was kind of just like cold and like whatever. So it was like. Reiko, like, you know, Reiko has her reasons that she's cold, so she meets Milton, who's not like the American dude she met.
Right.
And he's like he's just, you know, blatantly innocent. Like, he doesn't understand these things, and he doesn't have that, you know, he's not Jodi. He's not like a complete perv, because Jodi's what she expects. And so it's like, you know, and then Milton learns stuff, and then, like, he actually helps her gain a respect for Peepo Choo, and, like, I don't know. It was like, eventually, once we got to a certain point, I kind of knew where it was going.
Yeah.
But it's like a good thing. It was like for their character arcs that needed to happen, or they needed to, you know, be friends and learn from each other.
Yeah. Milton and Miki really help Reiko just come out of her shell, essentially.
Yeah.
That scene where, because like she, like as we talked about in book 2, like Reiko has all these walls she's built up because she feels like she's objectified, and you know, she doesn't trust any boys because she had bad experience specifically with American men, you know. And that scene in book 3 where she dumps out her purse.
Oh yeah.
And she's trying to like test them to see what Jodi and Milton do. Like she leans down, she like bends over to like, you know, pick up her stuff, and Jodi and Milton both go to help, but Jodi's just doing it as an excuse to look down her shirt, and she's like glaring at him, and you know, and she's like, oh, typical regular low-life pervert, and then she looks at Milton, who's not looking at her, he's just innocently picking up her stuff, and she's so jaded and so cynical that she hates him even more, because she just assumes that he's pretending not to look at her. and she's like, she thinks that Milton is worse than Jodi, and that's sort of like, like Reiko is like as far gone as she could be, like in her like, as I said, like inside of her shell, like she's got these cynical, she just like is totally detached almost from reality, you know. And then hanging out with Milton and Mike, and specifically Mike's like other nerd friends.
Yes.
Because that's really what it's about. They're hanging out in like a group dynamic with all their friends, and they go to the convention.
They go to Akihabara.
Yes. Is that just like an anime convention, I assume?
No, Akihabara is a district in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Like, because Akihabara, like, it's not necessarily a convention. Like, people just, like, that's what Akihabara is. It's like, you go
it's
and
the big
people...
gaming nerd district.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that's why, like, when they show it, and it's like, welcome to, and then it's like, Akihabara, it's like Milton, like, you see it, like, in these sparkly letters, because that's where, like, for Milton, you know, he's an otaku and stuff like that. That's, like, I was like, you know, that's like the Mecca. That's like where you know, you want to go if you're like big into stuff like that. Like that's the place.
I actually didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense.
Joey even talked to me about Akihabara a few times prior to going and then after going.
Oh yeah.
You know that he was telling him. You know, he was telling me that's exactly what it is. It's just this big gaming nerdy hub. You know, where everyone wants to go. And then he went and he goes, it was pretty cool. It was really overwhelming though.
I'll bet. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they go to Akihabara, and that's where all the other otaku are hanging out, essentially.
Yeah.
And through hanging out, you know, with everybody and just sort of like having fun, like I like that there's a lot of these silent panels of just like the group just doing things, playing games, and you know, showing toys. And Reiko is smiling like for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Right.
She's just enjoying herself.
Yeah, she's just having fun. And she, in a way, it's like she actually starts to feel comfortable, like she can let her guard down and not be so cynical about everything.
She knows there's not an ulterior motive.
Right.
She just knows that they're just there to have a good time.
And then that's when she sort of like rediscovers her love for cosplay, which, like, it's funny because like when I first read this, I was like, oh, I'm reading through it and I'm like, you get to that scene where she's looking at the dresses and you know, she's having a good time, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. She'll totally be into cosplay. I mean, she's a model, right? Like, you know, and then they do that scene where she shows up and she's in cosplay and she's like, surprise, and all the friends are like, not really. It makes perfect sense. You're a model.
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
We've been following you since the beginning, but we liked your first
your early stuff.
Yeah. And they talk about the first modeling gig she had, where she was modeling some science fiction.
Super Cyberspace Battle Queen.
Yes, Super Cyberspace Battle Queen.
What an amazing name.
That's a good one. But and that's like, you see that flashback, and that's just the beginning of her like descent into cynicism, because she's having fun and it's all great, and all the photographers, like, the photo shoot is her in costume and she's beating up guys in costumes, or guys in like monster costumes, you know. And apparently she's way into it because she's really, really beating them up. And everybody's so shocked, and the photographers are so shocked. And then after that, all her photo shoots are just her in bikinis or, you know, slinky clothes.
Yeah.
And it stops being fun for her. Like, it's not fun. And so, yeah, like, cosplay completely reminds her about having fun, you know, and how much fun it can be.
Yeah, it's like the model aspect of her, you know, that is her costume, more or less. That's not really her. So
and it's kind of it kind of relates to kind of my experience with like people, like when I was in Japan. Like in the story, it's like the reason she really wanted to get into modeling was because of that first photo shoot. Yes. Because she got to wear costumes and do stuff, and then she never did it again. And then it just kind of just became, oh well, this is what I'm doing. But she was like suddenly not happy. But like I remember like when I was leaving Japan, like I had a like going away party, and a bunch of my teachers did that same thing. They were like, I became a teacher so I could coach baseball because I couldn't play baseball. I could at least coach it. And then when I got there, they already had a baseball coach, so I ended up coaching badminton. And while I like it, it's not as fun. And and then they never, it's like they never get to do that thing that they wanted to do. That was the reason they got into that job. And it's like that's really, it's depressing.
Yeah.
But it kind of spoke to me, like when they got to that part where it's just like, she's like, are we going to do this? Are we going to wear costumes? Are we going to do this? And they're just like, basically like, no, just take your clothes off. No, just lick the ice cream cone. No, just do that. And it's like, she just eventually just became, like jaded and numb to it. And then to the point where she just thinks they're pervs, and that's why she headbutt that dude in the first book.
Yeah, the guy that runs up to her, he's a big fan of her, and she just smashes his face in. It's really interesting how Milton helps Reiko come out of her shell and like kind of like embrace and be happy with who she is, which like in watching Reiko do it is like what helps Milton completely also come to terms with his own like identity issues of like whether or not he should be an otaku. But I think a lot of Milton's thing was like being an otaku is just who he felt is just who he is. Like he feels like that's just that's how he's just happy when he's doing that. And he goes to Japan and he's disappointed because he doesn't fit in. And Reiko kind of helps him to be like, it doesn't really matter like where who you fit in or like where you are, as long as you're just with people that you like, and as long as you are fit in with your group of friends, that's really all that matters. And so the two stories kind of complement each other very well, I think.
Yeah.
Which of course then also complements the other stories, like with Gil. So then you have Reiko makes the Peepo Choo costume for Milton. She makes like a really nice one. And Milton's wearing it, and you have that great scene. I actually really, really like that scene of Milton sitting in the hotel, and it's the first conversation he has with Gil.
I adore that scene.
Yeah,
especially seeing Gil blush.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's because it's like it kind of all ties into like what I said. I think one of the main themes is like all these characters are like two versions of themselves.
Yeah.
They're all like two different people, but by the end of the book, they're all one person. Like they're all their own self. Like they no longer like they've shed that like dual part of themselves that they didn't like, or
they just kind of incorporated it into their main.
Exactly. Yeah.
Persona.
They all become complete, as it were.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you like Milton becomes complete by embracing, like embracing Peepo Choo to an extent where he doesn't feel like he has to be ashamed of it. And Reiko becomes complete because she realizes that she can trust people and she can just do the things that she wants and she can get back into cosplay. And Gil becomes complete between like him and Fate when he's talking to Milton. And like I said, it's that nice scene where Gil is like, "Oh, I thought you said I heard you tell Jodi you were never going to wear that costume again," and Milton gives that really impassioned speech about like it's good to just like be who you are and be happy with yourself, and you don't have to feel bad about choosing the way you want to live. That's other people's problems, no matter what they think, just be yourself. And that's when Gil decides he's going to be himself, and he embraces that's like the big climax of the book. Then is after that speech is the big climax where Fate attacks Miyamoto and all the gang. Morimoto, sorry. Yeah, he goes to kill Morimoto, and you see him in his new Fate costume, which is pretty. I don't know. I guess I would say that it's shocking, except at this point in the book, it's really not that shocking. Like if you're this far into it, but yeah, it's like a full-on like cross-dressing. Like he's wearing like stiletto boots. Fishnet stockings, a thong, and like a bikini top. Yeah, and he's got like the mask. What is that?
The one where he's dressed as a female.
Yeah, it's like
geisha.
Yeah, he put makeup on.
Kind of like a porcelain doll mask.
Yeah, it's like a porcelain doll mask, but he's put makeup on it, and he's wearing like a big wig. So yeah, like Gil is like completely embraces who he is on the inside, And that also kind of like, I don't know, that kind of like that scene, like you said, Luke, where Gil blushes. I don't know. It almost makes me think like that's sort of Miki's influence when she like obsesses over him and she just thinks he's so great and cool, and like she sort of like draws Gil because they hang out for that day, and Mika's riding around on his shoulder, and it's almost like, I don't know. I feel like there's some kind of connection there.
Well, especially because right after that little impassionate speech that Milton gives, he even says, like, I always thought Gil was just, like, scary and intimidating, but I just never gave him a chance.
Exactly, yeah, he's not just a huge, scary man, he's...
And it's probably, and because Miki was the first person to ever, like, see him and be like, oh, you're like Totoro, you're not...
Exactly. She saw him as a big teddy bear, not as a big scary monster.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody else was just frightened of him, and like she was the first person not completely terrified of him.
Yeah.
So I think
that definitely had to have been a push for him, like you said, to embrace himself. That there's no way.
So yeah, I do really like the way the book sort of solves all of its like two different, like all the characters solve their like identity problems. Like even Jodi by the end of the book, Gil rescues him. And, like, when you see them back in America, Jodi's getting ready to register for community college, which is just, like, a small little thing of, I guess, like, just showing that, like, Jodi is moving on with his life or trying to do something,
Yeah, he's going to actually better himself.
Yeah. I guess the other big plot twist that we see in the book is that Aniki is actually alive. We thought
that threw me off. Yeah,
we thought he died in book 2, and turns out that he wasn't killed in the hit, and he's just been like in the hospital. And while Morimoto's been running the show, but Morimoto brings him back, and that, of course, like, Morimoto's, like, showing off all the changes he made to the place and how it's all tacky and American now. And which does not bode well for Aniki.
Yeah, Aniki is not happy with that.
No.
Yeah. But, so, like, the big climax, you have, like, Gil as Fate, just, like, mowing down all of these Yakuza guys in his, like, leather bondage gear. And the showdown. Oh, I guess we also didn't say that. So the Gil's like military friend Mickey, not to be confused with Mike or Miki. Which, by the way, I like how Mickey, like the big black Carl Weathers Predator kind of guy, how he has like the helmet with the big black Mickey Mouse ears on it. Just like that's like his costume, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But, like, he tries to kill Gil purely for business because Mickey is the supplier to all the gangs, and since Gil has just been going around as a vigilante and just, like, killing all the gangs, he's encroaching on Mickey's territory, so Mickey's going to take him out.
He's messing with his money. He didn't care until it started affecting his finances.
Exactly. And, that scene where they fight, it's just like, it's a short, just like a few, like 3 pages, but it's pretty hardcore. Gil just, like, rips his pants off and shoves, like, a rocket launcher. Rocket launcher up his butt. Yeah.
Up your butt.
Shove it up your butt. Yeah, that just kind of like, it just kind of like happens.
Yeah, it definitely did not warn me, like, or, it didn't, like, prepare me for that.
Right.
It really just, I mean, like, it kind of did with the climax of book 2, with Gil's choice of execution on the mob boss. Like I should have been prepared for
impaling
it.
that guy.
Yeah. I was not ready for that.
I like, it's a good showdown with Gil and Aniki. Yeah. And Aniki just finally is just like, whatever. This was all a mistake.
If you wanted to get something done, you just got to do it yourself.
You know the proverb. And he just shoots Morimoto. But of course, doesn't kill Morimoto, so Gil takes Jodi and leaves. But that last page of like everything's over, and then Anaki's leaving, and Morimoto's there, like catches him with the gun to his head, and of course it's the Glock that Aniki gave him for his birthday. That panel of the Glock against Anaki's head, and Morimoto's like, he says that thing to him, like, you know, this is the one gift you wish you'd never given me, and Aniki just has that like complete Yakuza blank expressionless face, and you know, like he doesn't react at all to the whole situation. I mean, I like that panel. I like that's just classic, you know, Yakuza determination, I guess you could say.
One thing I did like about that scene, like after he shoots him, like it felt like you know, like in the original Halloween, like he shoots him out the window, he's on the ground, and then after Gil leaves with Jodi, like Aniki looks out the window and he's gone, like Michael Myers style, but then, you know, he pops up and he's gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought those little panels right there, that's what it made me think of, was like a horror movie or like Halloween or something, where it's like, you know, he's not really dead.
Right.
Like,
Of course.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's a good sequence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it plays out really nicely. And it's sort of like, I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's a nice way to resolve the story, like, but without Gil having to be like too much of a bad guy. And I know that's a weird thing to say, because we've been watching Gil like murder people relentlessly throughout this whole book. But you sort of come to like Gil, especially in the climax.
Especially the Miki scene.
Yeah, especially after with Mike, and then with his conversation with Milton. You're just like, okay, Gil's like a complicated weirdo, but like he's definitely a guy that like has some kind of morals. Like he's basically just he's an exaggeration of the American superhero vigilante. He's just been going around Japan killing mob bosses because they're bad, or as I think as Mickey puts it, because Gil just always has to. What is it? He always has to like defeat any challenger or anybody he sees as a worthy opponent. He will go after them. Like it's just like in his nature. It's that like he makes that whole thing about like, you know, the lion will always stalk its prey, and gets kind of arty with that description. Yeah. But
I just like that it allowed Filipe to disconnect Gil and his group from the whole Yakuza subplot without him having to like murder the entire Yakuza.
Right.
You know, it allowed Aniki and Morimoto to still kind of be a thing if they decided to continue it. So that was nice.
Well, for sure. But I guess what I'm getting at is like it almost would have cheapened Gil if he would have just killed Morimoto Rockstar just because Aniki paid him to, even though that's the whole reason he was there. But you feel like Gil learned something. Like Gil, you know what I mean? Like you feel like Gil actually grew as a character after his conversation with Milton.
Yeah. Well, there's a big theme of self-discovery in this book, and
absolutely,
Gil was not left out of that.
Right. Yeah.
And I like that.
Exactly. I like that too. How even Gil came
the one
away.
who you just kind of like get used to being a crazy murderer without a sense of justice or without a moral standing or whatever. He even had the chance to develop. So
and actually be a hero. Like like in the end, it's like he does go on this murder spree, but this time it is actually to save like his employee / I guess their friends. Like to save somebody. I mean, he cares about Jodi, so he actually goes and like saves them. So it's like this is the first time he's actually being heroic. Like the other times he was just like a violent sociopath. He was just out murdering people, and then.
While he was saving Jodi, like, he's saving Jodi just obviously so Jodi doesn't die. But I feel like it was also to kind of, help Milton.
Well, to
himself
help
and
Milton. And because he wants
a win.
I'm sure he would have felt a little guilty about, like, bringing Jodi to Japan and then Jodi getting killed,
Yeah.
Like, Jodi was only there just for his cover, But yeah, with that last page of them flying home, and Milton's like happy in his Peepo Choo costume on the plane, and Gil is like completely. I actually would have. This is a criticism I have for Filipe's art, and I think this probably just has to come from like cramming the ending into as like small amount of pages as possible. I would have liked to have seen like a better shot of Gil like in his like new wardrobe, I guess you could put it. Like he's like embracing like cross-dressing essentially is how you can look at it, because like the close-up panel of his face, you can see that he's wearing like lipstick and he's got like a hat and earrings and some kind of like a boa or some kind of feathery like a coat, like a big fluffy coat. So like you see, but the point is that I mean the message it gets across. Like Gil is embracing his new, you know, his true self, as it were, by admitting that he at the very least, you know, it just enjoys cross-dressing. But yeah, I again, Gil like all the other characters like learns something about himself, as you said, Luke, self-discovery. Yeah.
I'm glad that Filipe gave him a shot, just like Mickey did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
I'm glad he grew on me. Like,
yeah.
The Mickey scenes were cute. I couldn't help it. They were pretty kawaii.
They were kawaii. Sugoi.
So how do we recover from that? Because I don't think there's we can't really segue out of that anything.
I was just thinking about, I don't know, like, we didn't even talk about, like, the creator of Peepo Choo. Like,
right.
The ending of his arc, the conclusion, essentially. So,
oh, my goodness. I mean, we're at the end of the book now, so we can just kind of segue into the creator of Peepo Choo.
Yes,
conclusion.
Yeah, but yeah, so I guess, talking about...
First time you read it, did you expect that? I knew that the homeless guy was going to be an important character.
Okay.
Kept bringing him up.
Yes. Well, I mean, in the second book, like they basically tell you who he is. Like, because
they show him.
Yeah.
Because he's the homeless guy in the second book, and he's following him around. He's following around Milton with his like pack of stray animals. And you get that flashback scene in the second book of explaining how he became homeless. Like he was the creator of Peepo Choo, and he had this fall from grace because it bombed, and everybody like turned on him and thought he was terrible, and he kind of had this like mental breakdown where he just didn't like believe in himself, you know, in any sort of way. And so the third book just kind of like most of his arc is in the second book, but the third book like gives you that nice little like that, just like the nice little finality of his arc. Like the creator sort of gets disheartened again when he sees Milton, but Milton's not wearing the Peepo Choo costume. He's just wearing regular clothes. Yeah. And he kind of just goes back to his old homeless self, like not realizing not really believing that anybody actually liked Peepo Choo. But then when Milton gets the new costume given to him by Reiko, and he gets completely like reinvigorated and, you know, cleans himself up. And I love those. I spoke about this in the second podcast. I love the way that animals are drawn like as like a single unit to be part of him. How they all follow him around. And I love the way it's done in this book too. How he's at the public baths and all the animals are just like sitting outside the door to the public baths, like patiently waiting for him. And then later he's at the where is that? Oh, it's the publisher. He's at Sodansha. The fake publisher, Sodansha. And all the animals are just sitting outside on the sidewalk staring. You know, that's just, I don't know. I like animals, and that's a good visual gag.
Yeah, so I just thought it was good. And then, you know, at the end, he's got, you know, when she's in Reiko's in the airport, they're actually having he's actually doing an interview, like his first interview, and talking about like, you know, what he's gonna do next, and you know, just like there's hope. Like he's kind of like, okay, Peepo Choo bombed, but you know, this one kid loves it, and at least somebody likes it, and I can keep going. I don't have to like feel like a failure.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. My brother was messaging me on Skype, and the only reason it bothers me is because I know the little beep sound is going to pick up on the recording.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, yeah, I agree, John. Like he makes a good speech, and I like how his like comeback. It's all like how he says it's owed entirely to the mysterious young American boy. So like he's like barely actually connected to like Milton. Like he doesn't know who any of them are, but just sort of from them being there, like that ripple effect, just kind of like turn his life around. Just being able to see that he did have an effect on people.
And just to see the positive, impact it had on somebody, and to see that somebody likes his stuff, and it's like as somebody loves it, and somebody loved it enough to be wearing a little homemade version of the outfit, it's like, okay, this person cares about it, even though nobody else really got it, there's an audience there, and there are people that really liked it, and it really made somebody happy. So I can't stop, it's like I kind of, it's like he, it's essentially he went,
yeah.
Basically.
It's good. It's a good like happy ending, like a final note for the whole story. Yeah, I like Peepo Choo a lot, like the whole thing. If
it would have just been the first book, it would have kind of for me been like I read it once, I enjoyed it, that was the end of it. But like all three of them just pulled such a good narrative together of respecting who you are and not being embarrassed by it, and there's a lot of good themes there. It's it's good to take it to heart.
Yeah.
Well, I talk about this on a lot of the podcasts that we do because I think like one of the things that makes me really, really like a book, one of the things that I look for in a book and in a writer or an artist or a writer-artist is just that a really strong and unique voice. And what I really like about Peepo Choo is that it is such a unique work. Like it's something that could only have come from Filipe Smith. I've never seen another book. I've seen books that are about what he's writing about. Independence and like being true to yourself and stuff like that. Like those are all good messages, and other people write about those, but nobody has done them in like such an exact way that Filipe gives you in this story.
And I was going to say, because I actually read this article, it was going around, and I don't have it on me right now, but it was about, it was an article, and I think it was like another artist wrote it, but it was like 7 reasons that Filipe Smith is succeeding or something like that. But one of the things was he didn't grow up, they were like when he was a kid, he didn't grow up reading comics. And so like when he writes his stories, like all of his stories are just like from his real life and from his life experiences. So it's like, because he didn't have those, those things that in comics and those like things that like, if you read comics all the time, like eventually they could become a part of your psyche. Like
absolutely.
And you start writing them because even if you're not intending to, they were imprinted on you, or I don't think that's the right word, but it's like he didn't have those same like influences, he didn't have those same things, and so that was one part of it, was that he because he didn't have those influences and things like that, so when he wrote, he just wrote from his own life and his own life experiences, so it's like he himself is very unique, because it's like he's was it Jamaican and Argentinian. He lived in Ohio. Then he lived in LA. He went to Chicago for art school. He lived in LA, and I think he won the Tokyo Pop thing with MBQ.
Yes.
Then he went and lived in Japan, and like he has like a very unique story. So because he's pulling from that, like there's nothing. There will never be anything like it.
Exactly.
It's uniquely him.
It's so exactly. It's so purely Filipe Smith. Like it's and that's definitely one of the biggest reasons why I just really like this book, because I just love that like that spark, that individual spark that you can only get here.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I do think that it's a good looking book. I do really like his art. It's that perfect, like it's manga, but it doesn't. I think we said this in one of the other podcasts. Like it's obviously like he's drawing manga, because this is for a manga publisher. But it's not like it doesn't feel like traditional, like what you would expect when anybody would just say, "Give me a manga style." Like there's something that I think is a little looser.
Yeah.
About his lines. and his figures. And ultimately, I just think it's I just really like the subject matter. Like, it's such a, like, it's kind of going with what you were talking about. I'm trying not to get off on too much of a tangent, John. But what you were talking about like Filipe not growing up reading comics, and I agree that without getting into like too much of a criticism on the comic book industry, I think that's a huge problem with the comic book industry, the American comic book industry, is that so many professionals are just fans turned professionals, which I'm not going to say in and of itself is a bad thing, but I've been reading comics my whole life, and I would not say no to the opportunity to be a professional comic book writer, so I can't be against that, but I do think that is a problem in like the overall content, and you just get a lot of stuff that feels like it's just imitating all the stuff that's always been there. And it starts to feel really homogenized. And even people that can do good work, like people that are professionals and like understand the craft, I still think a lot of times it just comes off as like almost like they're just doing somebody else's shtick. And I really love like what this book is about. This book is about like connecting with other people through your geekness and through your hobbies, And so it's such a perfect comic book for, like, I'm referring to Peepo Choo as a comic book or a manga. It's such a perfect book for other geeks. Like, if you're a comic book reader, which anybody who's going to read a manga is going to like totally identify with this. Like, I do think that you could probably give this book to like an average, like somebody who doesn't read comics, but they enjoy like just like geek material, like they play a lot of video games and they watch Marvel movies. I think you could give this to them and they'd get it. They'd get what it's about, because it's just about that being true to yourself. That outsider trying to be, outside looking in, somebody who feels like an outcast, but
it's like eventually you just like it's like like it's like there are other people who like what you like, and if there are other people that do these things, and it's like, and if it makes you happy, it's it's okay. And because like ultimately the message for for Milton was, it was like, okay, like you might not fit in with the people around you, but it's like if you are happy with what you have, and if you like cosplaying and you like doing those things, then eventually, because people see you, you will attract like-minded people.
Yes.
Type of thing. So be happy with who you are. Like, because if you're proud of who you are and proud of what you do, you'll attract people who are like-minded and have similar interests, and then you won't be an outcast anymore eventually.
And that is like such a true thing too. Like, happy people attract other happy people. Like, it may be shocking, but people do just like being around other happy people,
What?
I know, it's weird.
Like, that's just the thing. It's like, you want to be around people that are like happy, or people that are, they have something that they're happy about, even if it's not something you like. Like, there are things that I might not be into, but say like, I don't know, like my brother or somebody, if he's into something, but if he really is into it and he's passionate about it and he talks about it, even if I'm not really into it or I don't fully get it, that's going to make me excited too. And I'll be like, oh man, that's awesome. I might not completely understand.
Yeah.
But, he enjoys it. But if it's somebody that's like just complaining or just upset and like always whatever, it's like eventually that's draining.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah. But I think this book is good. I think for a lot of people, maybe, like, that probably read it, I think on the surface level, like the violence and stuff like that might have thrown people off. But what I really like about it is that underneath all of that stuff, there is a lot of heart in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In this book. And there's a really, like I said, there is a message, and it is something that, people should read and should, like, if they can get past all the, like the vulgar stuff, which is, it's just there. It's not the point of the book. It's just like,
it's just window dressing.
It's just window dressing. It's just like extraneous stuff that it's just there, for the book, kind of just because it's like, I don't know, like some people probably would, if it had just been about Milton, some people might have been like, that's boring.
Right.
And they might not have read. So it's like he did it maybe because if you have all this crazy stuff happening and people read it for the crazy stuff, or they just know, this book is crazy and there's violence and stuff like that, it's like it's like subterfuge or something like that. It's like he puts in this good message underneath it all.
They even do a bit about that in the book. You know, when he's on the train and someone's reading a manga about tennis.
Yes.
And he's... I know we're already kind of like at the end of everything.
But you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, he's talking about how it's just a book about tennis, and Reiko goes, yeah, people just read manga about everyday life. And Milton's like, wouldn't that be boring? And then they do like the big gratuitous Dragon Ball Z action shot of the tennis player hitting the ball really hard.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the violence does for Peepo Choo. You know, it ropes in a bunch of different audiences. So.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, I agree, like, the heart of this book really is about the characters and, as we said, self-discovery and...
It's a character development heavy book.
Yeah, and people juggling, like, two different aspects of their lives, you know, and people having to come to terms with who they are and who they want to be and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I do think that all the violence, which is very prevalent throughout the book, I do think that it actually... I don't want to just say that it's just window dressing, even though that's what I said like a few minutes ago. But I actually think it's a little deeper than that, because it does, at least on an intellectual level, I do think that all the violence works as a really biting satire of comics themselves, and specifically American comics. Like Gil is a beautiful satire of American superhero vigilantes. Like he's somebody who's hiding his true identity under a mask, and he's, obsessed with violence. As we talked about in the Book 2 the Book 2 podcast, like he literally has a hard-on for war. Like they had that panel of him with like a huge erection when he's reading about all of the Yakuza, gangs. Like, he fetishizes violence, and that is like a very like skewed satire on American superheroes. Like, it's not that big of a leap from what a lot of like American comic books look like.
Yeah.
So while I do think that it is there, it is there to just sort of titillate, but it is also, I do think it works like for what this book is about, which is not only talking about, character identity and all of that stuff we were just saying, but it's also just completely satirizing and making fun of the different like fandoms. Like, 'cause I mean, it satirizes, a lot of manga too. Not so much, I think, in Book 3. Book 3, it's well, I guess, you know what? I take that back. You can kind of say that it really does kind of satirize, like, just with all the Yakuza stuff. Like, I can't say for certain, but I don't know what the Yakuza underworld is like in Japan, but I do know that it gets used a lot as plot devices in manga and anime and Japanese fiction.
It's just when they need to depict something dangerous.
Yeah.
Because everyone already kind of knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, so I guess that's another thing that I just like about this book is how deftly Filipe combines like a banal story, a simple story about like somebody like discovering that their fandom is not the same as what they expected, the culture clash, combining it with a bunch of like action, sexy, violent superhero stuff. Like it works. I think it works really well.
Yeah.
And very few superhero comics. Like, I mean, a lot of superhero comics are character driven. It's usually about, there's a lot of character drama. I mean, you don't really need to look any farther than any random superhero comic. But I don't know. They don't really feel like they hit on the level that Peepo Choo does. I don't know. Maybe that's just personal preference, personal opinion. I feel like there's more character development in Peepo Choo than there is in the standard monthly 40-year-old superhero comic franchise.
Well, yeah. Because, I mean, that's not the, it's
especially
like... Especially
because he's relatable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and superhero comics are just spinning their wheels, maintaining the brand.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's
Building
not...
to a crossover.
It's not built. Yeah, it's not built for character development. I mean, and I think that's part of the reason that like a lot of the books, like like Image and all those people, like they're getting so much.
Oh, for sure.
Like they're building so many new audiences just because like I said, I like superhero books and stuff. Like, I mean, I haven't read one in a long time. Like the last one I read was like what? Well, I take that back. I read Miss Marvel, the newest one, the new Miss Marvel book, but like even then, it's not like every other book. Like the character goes through development, the character grows and learns things, and it's new. Mm-hmm. But I think for a lot of people, that's why Image and all these books, they're different. They're something new, and they're experimenting and taking like bold steps and having characters show emotion and go through arcs that aren't eventually wiped away in the next story arc. The
next round.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or the next writer comes on and he didn't like it, so he goes and he changes it back or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I think people don't like that. I mean, that people want some consistency and they want some creativity and they want something. I don't know, something with a little more heart. Like, yeah.
Peepo Choo delivers.
Absolutely.
On that front.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked about that before on other podcasts, but like, I mean, that was one of the big when the big manga boom happened in like the 2000s. That was one of the big selling points. Was everybody was so happy because it was like you could get a complete story. Like it was like a beginning and a middle and an end, and it was even if it was really long. Because trust me, there are lots of really long manga series.
Yeah.
What's the one that's the longest one now? Like it's just been going on
probably
forever.
One Piece.
I think One Piece. Like sure, you're gonna have those kind of books.
Yeah.
I mean, like even like older stuff like Dragon Ball went on forever. Like Ranma 1/2 went on for like a really long time. But you do get a lot of books that there's a beginning and an end and then it's done, and like that's the book. And that was so, like, a lot of American kids that liked reading comics, that was so unique and different to them.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because it also came, I don't know, I also like to look at things on a macro scale, and if you look at that time period, like, if you think about it, like in the early 2000s, that's when like the big manga boom happened and everybody started buying up manga. Like it's not too shocking that would happen shortly after the American comic book industry was just collapsing. Like in the late 90s, Marvel had declared bankruptcy. Like they were like there was some change like ready to happen, and I think that it was like people were ready for something to fill the void, and manga definitely did it.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything about this book. I think book 3 also read pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think the reason the first book maybe it felt like it read longer is there was so much to learn and so many characters and so much to get used to and things like that. But once you kind of got the setup and you know who all the characters are for the most part, it's like you flip through it. You don't have to. So I think that book 3 was like a quick read. It wasn't like very, very long. It didn't feel long.
Mm-hmm. I do think. I don't looking at the art. Well, no, I take that back. I was gonna say I feel like there's not as many like big pages in book 3 as there are in book 1 or 2.
There are the couple double page spreads.
There's a couple.
There are a couple. Like the one I really like that I actually didn't even notice until I opened the book this time was that double page spread of like Fate, the mask. Like that's the very first thing you see after the in volume 3. You just open and it's like there's a little picture of Miki and the credits on one side, and then you open and it's just a double page spread. Like you have to turn sideways.
Yeah.
There's that one, and then the one where she gives him his new costume, which I actually like that page. I need to, like, when we were talking about pages, like, I guess I just hadn't remembered it, was that double page spread of her giving,
him
like when
pulling
he
out the costume,
and he's just got the biggest smile on his face. Like, I actually really like that.
No, you're right.
That's actually really good.
That is a good one.
Yeah. So I think that's,
Yeah, so I take back what I said. There are some good big shots in this book.
But it's not. I guess maybe it's just not as many as the other two.
Maybe I'd have to go back and look, and I'm not going to. But
Very blunt.
yes, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's the conclusion to Peepo Choo.
Yeah. So
I think this is the first series we've finished, right?
yeah, like the first full series that we've read completely. I definitely think it does. I definitely recommend it to people. Like, if you've been listening to this podcast and you haven't read the book, I really, really recommend you try it out. Don't just listen to us blather on about it, because it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the books you'd like to share?
I think I covered most of my bases.
John,
I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, I've already said what I wanted to say. I mean, I think it's a good book. I think it's a good lesson. There's a good thing in there where it's like, I hope more people start reading it and check it out. And also, hey, if you like Filipe Smith stuff, hey, he's got a book called Ghost Racers with Marvel. You should go check that out. Support him. Because who knows? Maybe if he makes enough money, he'll do a follow-up about Rockstar in Chicago.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I would like to see a Morimoto Rockstar spinoff.
I was gonna say I would enjoy a fourth Peepo Choo book, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to hype myself up about something that could never be.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hold my breath on that one, but man, I would love it.
Yeah. John, any final stories about Japan to share?
I mean, I don't really have any
that relate to the book.
I don't have any major ones that relate to the book. I do have I've have like I said, I have had stuff because we didn't talk about it didn't happen to me, but the one where Jodi was trying to go into that I think it was it wasn't a brothel, but he was trying to go into.
No, it was a brothel, I thought.
I think it might be a brothel. See, I've never been into one.
He was turned down for being an outsider, right?
Yeah, no gaijin.
No gaijin.
And, that hasn't happened to me. Huh?
I was just quoting.
He was reading the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I could explain it. We could no. But no, I've never had that happen to me specifically where someone told me no. I had a friend, he got turned down during a office vacation. He got turned down. They were the office was going somewhere and they wouldn't let him go in with them. So the whole all the men in the office were going to some restaurant or something. I don't know. It might have been a hostess bar or something. And they wouldn't let him in because he was a foreigner.
Oh wow!
And so they had to go somewhere else simply because of that. And so that sort of stuff happens, which it doesn't happen as much. I don't feel like it happens as much in real rural areas. I feel like it happens more in the larger cities and things like that.
Really?
But I might be wrong. But we did have one time where I went to a restaurant. We were doing something, but we were trying to catch dinner. So we went in this restaurant, and this lady was we asked if they were open. The lady said yes, and just gradually we realized they weren't paying attention to us and stuff like that. And we kept asking for drinks and stuff. And the lady brought us tea from the vending machine outside and all these things. And so we were getting ready to order, and the guy was like, "We're not open.
Weird.
We're closed." And then they just sort of shoot us out. And we were like, "Well, we asked if you were open. What the?" And but he was she was just kind of looking at us weird. But he was he put his foot down. I guess maybe she just didn't know how to tell us or something. But he was just essentially he was just "We are closed. Get out." And we were like, "Okay." But I mean, that was probably it in terms of pertaining to the story. I really don't have much off the top of my head. I don't know.
I almost thought we were gonna get a scene like that when Milton ran up to talk to the old guy and they traded clothes. I liked that scene the way it played out in the book. How the old man was nice and talking to him, but I almost thought we were gonna get a scene where the old man just completely ignored Milton. Because, as I understand it, that is a thing that will happen in Japan. There are Japanese people that will just completely ignore any foreigners, and they won't even acknowledge them.
Yeah, I mean, I've never off the top. Well, wait, no, actually, I did have that happen. One time I was lost. That actually did happen. An old man was on the side of the road, and I was lost, and I asked him for directions in Japanese because I specifically learned how to say like, where is the name of the school?
Uh-huh.
And I asked him, and he just looked at me, and then he looked at the ground, and then he looked at me again, because he was doing like work. He was doing like yard work. And then he sat there, and then he just went right back to work.
Yeah.
He like didn't answer me or anything. And then so I just ended up driving, and it was like right there. So I mean, luckily it was just right there. But yeah, like that. I was gonna say that hasn't happened, but actually, yeah, that has happened.
Wow.
But I mean, like, I'm glad it didn't happen in the book.
No, I agree. I'm glad it didn't happen in the book either, especially because at that point in the book, like, we were already past Milton getting disappointed with Japan. Now it was time for him to like bounce back from everything. But so yeah, I am glad it didn't happen. But like I've heard other stories from other people like who people who live in Japan like even have that problem. Like you know, I guess that's just part of the cultural.
It's a very insulated culture.
Yeah.
So like you're gonna have that where people are not gonna be. Sometimes I think is they just don't know how to react and they don't know how to act. So they just don't do anything because they just don't know what to do. So it's like they don't want to acknowledge it and they don't want to be rude. So if they can't figure out, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
Right.
They just don't say anything.
Which I guess that's just weird. Like that just doesn't make sense to Americans. Like, because Americans are so loud and they speak their mind. You know, so it's like if you don't like me, just tell me you don't like me, and we'll move on.
Yeah, but it's because I said it's a very different. Like the cultures are very different, though at the same time they're very similar, in ways. But that would take a whole other podcast.
This is a whole different podcast, right?
Yeah. But yeah.
Yes. Well, I think that's about going to wrap it up for our series on Peepo Choo. John, thank you very much for being on the show and reading the book with us and sharing the different experiences you had living in Japan.
Oh, no problem.
Luke, also thank you for reading the book and sharing your experiences as a big nerd in America.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you've decided to share that with the world.
It's not that big of a secret.
I'm really. Okay. So I'm really glad Joey got to be a part of it. I'm really upset that he couldn't be here for the other two episodes.
Yes.
But,
that's too bad.
That's life.
C'est la vie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Learning about Japan through him and kind of living through Japan vicariously, through him, was pretty fascinating. There was a lot of times that he would be walking down Akihabara with me on video call.
Oh, okay.
So I would kind of get to experience it sort of firsthand.
Oh, cool.
That was pretty fascinating. So Japan's pretty cool, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I am Aaron Walther. You can find me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter at AAWALTHER. That's AA Walther on Twitter. You can find comics that I have written at newhavencomics.com and aaronwalther.com. And you can find my science fiction anthology, Science Hero, is on Comixology. Just search for Science Hero, and that should pop up. And as always, you can find new episodes of this very podcast, Comic DNA, at comicdna.podbean.com. John?
All right. Let's see. You can find me on Facebook at John Parrish Comic Writer. You can find me on Twitter at John H. Parrish, John _H_ Parrish. I should be the only John H. Parrish. I think I'm the only one. You can find my first comic series on secretsandshadows.net. My current series that I recently just finished, Clusterfuck, is on Comixology right now. And other than that, those are the places you can find me.
Lucas?
Yes. As always, you can find me on Facebook. My name is Luke Moritz. And you can find me on Twitter at Luke T. Moritz. I don't do any comics or anything yet, so I do have something in the works, though.
Cool.
Hopefully the next time I'm on, I'll have that done.
Hopefully.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Come back for the next episode. My good friend Chris McJunkin is coming back, and we are going to be talking about Preacher by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. So, thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you all next time.